Labour will remember a historic election victory. The underlying trends and statistics may not matter for now. Keir Starmer can bask in the glow of his triumph. But what problems will he face, and are they insurmountable? Britain's problems are truly daunting, and the ones that once beset the Tories won't go away. Do join me, Jan Darasz, for How We Got Here.
The UK Labour Party, led by Keir Starmer, decisively defeated Rishi Sunak's Conservatives in one of the biggest general elections landslide victories in UK history last week. Consequently, Starmer replaced Sunak as British Prime Minister, thus putting an end to the Tories' 14-year rule over the nation. Sunak's tenure will now forever be tarnished as one that resulted in the worst Conservative Party election result in its history. According to many, however, the result is more of a Conservative failure rather than a Labour win.
I will shortly be seeing His Majesty the King to offer my resignation as Prime Minister.
Polls show that the economic consequences of Brexit, the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and multiple domestic scandals were too much for the Tories to overcome. While the UK's electoral system rewarded Labour with a significant parliamentary majority compared to the previous election in 2019, Starmer-led Labour secured a smaller portion of the popular vote than Corbyn's hard-left Labour. This development comes as a consequence of a movement urging voters to cast their votes tactically on the candidate who has the biggest chance of defeating their respective Conservative opponent, rather than simply following party allegiances. That is why some, while acknowledging the importance of Starmer's win, see the results as a consequence of the British public growing tired of Conservative governments, rather than a sign of support for Labour's platform and campaign. Moreover, Starmer himself has come under scrutiny for the direction he has taken with his party. A political pragmatist, Starmer has attempted to steer his party away from social democratic and leftist ideas. Instead, he has opted for a soft centre-left perspective in order to steal as many voters as possible from the Tories.
The change begins right here.
Some argue that the manoeuvre was a strategic campaign choice and that Starmer is likely to reintroduce Labour's leftist policies to the public soon. Others are not as sure. For now, ahead of the Prime Minister lay many new challenges, such as reinvigorating the economy, handling the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East, and implementing wide-ranging green climate policies.
My guest today is Bartłomiej Kot, the Programme Director at the Warsaw Security Forum. So welcome to the programme.
Lovely to be here with you.
Just let's get your immediate reaction to the recent Labour victory, electoral victory.
Well, it was a landslide, as it was actually predicted by media and pollsters. A bit less than the most, I would say, exaggerated expectations from pollsters. But in the end, the biggest and the best result of the Labour Party ever, and the worst result of the Conservative Party ever. People are actually comparing that to the beginning of the 20th century. But if you look at the
the Tony Blair.
Well, even prior to that, very early 20th century. But if you compare the difference between the two major parties, how many seats Labour has and how many seats the Conservative have, then I would say that it might be even compared to the 1832 elections. So where actually this difference was around 224, if I'm not mistaken. This time it's even bigger than that. So yes, clearly the worst result of the Conservative Party ever.
How does this compare to 1945 in terms of its impact?
Well, it has a huge impact on the future of the Conservative Party. Of course, we're still about to witness what will happen internally in a party. But the truth is that my opinion, they came into the point where they clearly have to decide what to do next in terms of not only the narrative around their promises, pledges to the people, but also the leadership in a party. Usually, it was way easier to elect another leader. This time, the prominent people internally in the party, they lost their seats. There are only a handful of those who were elected. Rishi Sunak is of course not an option anymore, and probably the party will at least for a time being elect a person who would be a bit of an extreme within the party. That's usually what happens, in my opinion, after the long time of governance of one of the parties, because the issue is, of course, with the electorate that fled to Reform UK. So, in a sense, the Conservatives have to reinvent themselves. They clearly have a leaking electorate. Not only the ones who are voting for change, who trusted them when there was a Brexit time.
Yes, and the red wall as well.
Yes, but they also lost seats that were considered to be safe seats for I would even say centuries. There was one constituency that was conservative since 1820, and they lost it during these elections. People are saying that there are no safe seats anymore, especially for the members of the cabinet. But the truth is, they have to reinvent themselves, not only in terms of what kind of narrative they want to sell to the people, to the electorate, but also in terms of the leadership.
Let's stick with the Conservatives a moment. They prove the old adage about British politics that it's parties that lose rather than parties win at these elections. We talked earlier about Rishi Sunak's wife holding the umbrella when he was making his resignation speech instead of being rained on when he was giving the date of the election. Was it a question of timing that the Prime Minister Sunak got wrong, or was it just one of these things where you spend so much time in politics that whatever you do, you're going to lose because the tide of the climate, the zeitgeist has turned against you?
There are some people within the Conservative Party who think that he should have waited until the very end of the electoral cycle. But this is actually the reasoning is not about whether he could lose or he could win the elections. I would even say that the reasoning here, the one that is presented by those members of the Conservative Party, is simply speaking based on for how long they could continue to be a part of the government, to be the government. So it's very much, let me put it that way, party-oriented, not state-oriented thinking. But in the end, my opinion is that the only thing that he could do during this campaign is he could have done better in terms of, for example, the D-Day ceremony. Of course, he could have done better when it comes to the scandal that was related to members of his staff that
the betting.
They were betting on the date of elections. But in my opinion, that was the tide that was about to come. I mean, it's like writings on the wall. Things are already wait and yes, simply speaking, they had to come. It's
like the Chinese say, when you lose the mandate of heaven, there's nothing you can do about it. What's the when Labour got in 1945, they kicked out very successful wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill during a war, and then they essentially installed what we call now the welfare state, National Health Service, all that kind of way of thinking. Margaret Thatcher was a great Prime Minister that influenced Britain's thinking, not just policy. What is Starmer of that calibre, do you think, or is he? How do you rate him as a very recent Prime Minister, at least a leader of the Labour Party?
He's a very solid politician, I would say. At least from the information, the conversations I had with the people who work with him directly, they think that he's a very solid politician and a very solid leader. You have to take into account that he actually saved the Labour Party from the era of Corbyn. So basically speaking, at some point the Labour Party was also on on actually a brink of being dismantled, having huge losses to Conservatives, facing the question of the future, etc., etc. So that was also actually Starmer's success story to bring the Labour Party to the point where he is right now. The thing is that he's not a person comparable to Tony Blair, who actually with whom the Britons they fell in love with him. Starmer is a solid person, but also a person who's less likable by the people. They don't know much about him. Of course, this information is there out in the ether, online.
He's constantly reiterating his working class credentials. His father was.
Yeah, but even in for example, he claims that he's an avid football supporter. That should actually speak to the people. But when you ask people around, and there were even posts done on this subject, whether they know about that characteristics of him, no one quoted that, no one knew about it. So he's a solid lawyer with that, and that's his actually background. And I'm sure that he can govern and that he can also manage the party. The question is that if he can actually make people fall in love with him.
I mean, when you say manage the party, huge party, 400 odd seats, is that too big for him to govern correctly? Is the party not going to split off into extremist groups and pro-X, pro-Y, pro-Z groups, lobby groups? How do you think he's going to govern this huge organisation?
Look, I mean, there was no prime minister in the history of the UK who had that many members of parliament, so that will be clearly also his first time, and we'll see. But certainly he has to make sure that the party is that way operable, because there are huge things facing this party. There are huge things facing the cabinet. Sunak didn't lose elections only because of the fact that the Conservatives were there for 14 years, or because of the fact that there were like prime ministers coming and going. They were coming and going because of the fact in how bad shape the state of the UK is currently. And of course, with this clear majority, Starmer has the mandate to govern, but he would be also, of course, rated on the success of this governance. He cannot say that he has a huge opposition in the parliament. All the things that will be there, whether successes or failures, that will be only his own fault, or of course success.
A final question. What about the problems that still remain? Brexit, kind of unresolved mentally, Ukraine, the Russo-Ukrainian war, migration, culture wars. How do you think the Labour Party will cope with these problems?
When it comes to the war in Ukraine, this will be a continuation of the policies that were conducted by the Conservatives. I would say that in this regard, it's actually the interest of the state. Everyone, there is a consensus when it comes to that in the Parliament, in the Westminster. When it comes to the internal politics, in my opinion, he would have to go a bit left of the centre just after the elections. Simply speaking, because of the fact that a lot of the votes and electorate of the Labour Party were leaking to the independent candidates, and they were actually leaking on the basis of Gaza issue. The fact that he wasn't capable of securing the votes of those extreme left supporters of the Labour Party. So at least for time being, I suppose he would have to go a bit left of the centre in order to bring the basis back to the party. But he clearly does not have a clear contender from the left of his position. And when it comes to the other issues, I would say that this buzzword that is there already, the progressive realism, is quite a good explanation to the Labour Party politics. So there will be progressive when it comes to the values. There will be progressive when it comes to the internal politics of the United Kingdom, but they will be very realistic when it comes to the approach that they will have with the partners outside of the Isles and with the US, with whoever governs in the US, whether that will be Trump or Biden, and also very much, in my opinion, open to cooperation with the European Union, especially in terms of defense and security. I'm not the one who would say that there will be a comeback to European Union. In my opinion, it's over. The story is over. The Brexit story is over, at least in that regard. But certainly, he will try to build a platform with the European Union.
The honeymoon period is probably going to be a short one, so Bartłomiej Kot, thank you very much for coming on to our programme.
Thank you very much.
So that's all we have time for today. Join us next time for How We Got Here.